This video is a response to a YouTuber who I'm sure some of you guys are aware of. He goes by the name of Coach Red Pill, and his video Never Fall for Sour Grapes, aka Why Incels Should Not Go MGTOW.
I'm excited. It's great to be back. Sorry I was away, but I had a little adventure in New York and Knoxville. I'll tell you all about it in the next video. But for now, let's get started. I've never known how to pronounce his name. You tell me, is it Aesop's Fables or Aesop's Fables?
I believe it's Aesop, but I could be wrong.
Well, whatever. Aesop wrote a bunch of fables, and one of them was the one about the fox and the sour grapes. See, there was this fox, and he saw these grapes up in the air, hanging from a tree. And he wanted to eat them, of course. And so what he did was he jumped and jumped and jumped and tried to get at the grapes. He tried and tried and tried, and, he failed. He failed to get the grapes. And finally, in frustration, tired, exhausted, he just looked up at the grapes and said, they're probably sour anyway. And he walked away. That's a fable. And like all great fables, it reveals a truth about human beings that is so universal. You go to any country, any time, anywhere on this earth, at any time on this earth, and you will see that people act that way all the time.
Well, that's a coping mechanism. That's something that people do when, they try to achieve something and they cannot achieve something. So in order to make themselves feel better about their lack of success, about their failure, they claim that, that what I wanted before was not worth it anyway, so actually I'm better off not having what I wanted. It's just a coping mechanism.
They try to reach some goal, some objective, something that they really want. They try and they fail. And often as not, what winds up happening is that they keep on doing the same thing over and over again, like the fox. The fox, what did he do? He just kept on jumping up and down, trying to reach the grapes, and of course he failed. But instead of thinking through the problem and maybe, dragging over some rock that he could jump off of and reach the grapes, adapt to the situation. No, instead of adapting to the situation, instead of trying to use his brains to improve his situation so he could achieve his objective, what did he do? He just kept on repeating what he was doing and then finally gave up, exhausted, gave up and said, it was probably crap anyway, and who gives a shit? That happens all the time. And it happens, with incels. And that's the point of this video. Incels, all the time, will say, all women are whores. Because involuntary celibates try to get a woman. They try and they fail. And they try, and rather than adapt, they keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Exactly. Incels are not adapting. They refuse to adapt, and the reason why they don't adapt is because the fundamental core of their belief system is that they're a victim and that they're owed something. And they have these complexes. They have this entitlement complex where they believe that they're entitled to something, but it's even worse than that because they're not actually willing to do what it takes to actually obtain a woman. They're not. Just look at the incel community. Just look at them. They're a bunch of guys who believe that they deserve something for nothing. In fact, many of them have actually said this, that they deserve something for nothing. How are you going to adapt when you have that kind of belief system? It's very simple. You're not. You're going to stay in the same position. They have to rid themselves of victim mentality. They have to rid themselves of this, belief that you should get something for nothing. But these guys are living in fantasy land. They need to come back into the real world and accept the situation and make the best of the situation.
they've been told and they've been taught that they should be quote unquote gentlemanly, that they should be, nice guys. And of course that fails miserably for reasons that we all know. And, they try and try and try with this approach that fails every time, just like the way the fox keeps on jumping up and down and fails every time. And eventually, what does the involuntary celibate say? He says, these women, they're not worth it. They're whores. They're this, that, the other. And they say a lot of times, they say, I'm going to go MGTOW. Men going their own way. I'm going to go MGTOW and fuck women. They're just whores. They're just thoughts. They're just this, that, the other. Right? The grapes were sour.
But what that really means is that they're not prepared to adapt. They're not prepared to do the necessary amount of work to actually get a woman. See that these incels that go MGTOW, all they're doing is jumping from one group to another. All they're doing is, trying to really cope with the fact that they have failed. You see, they're using MGTOW as a coping mechanism for their lack of success with women because it makes them feel better about the fact that they could not obtain a woman. That's really what it is. They're not using even MGTOW correctly because a lot of these incels in MGTOW, they're still losers. They're not saying, well, I'm going to go MGTOW to actually do self-improvement and actually improve my situation in general. Forget about women. I'm not going to worry about women, forget about women. I'm going to now use the free time that I have, okay, give up pursuing women, and use the free time that I have to actually improve my life situation. A lot of these guys are still living at home. A lot of these guys are unemployed or working, very low-end jobs. But what you see with a lot of these incels that go into MGTOW, they're still losers. They're still losers because their mentality is still the same. They still have victim mentality, and they still believe that, they're owed something. So at the end of the day, nothing's going to change for these guys.
See what I'm saying? That's what they say. Now, I don't have a problem with MGTOW, okay? I think that men going their own way is a perfectly respectable option with one caveat. And the caveat is you actually have to have tasted the grapes, if you will. See, a man who's had, relationships with women, and for whatever reason he finds them unsatisfying or makes him or bring him unhappiness, and he decides that, something, I've tasted these grapes, I've had my fun with these women, but something, I'm going to go my own way. No women in my life, I'm going to go full on MGTOW. That's one thing, and that's perfectly respectable. Sure, because the guy knows what he's talking about. He's had relationships with women, and he has discovered that for whatever reasons, he is unhappy in those relationships, and he has decided to go his own way. That's perfectly fine, perfectly respectable. But if you're an involuntary celibate, you're just indulging in sour grapes if you go MGTOW. Yeah. You're just saying that rather than adapt and try to achieve my objective, I'm going to just say that this objective is shitty and rotten and awful, and I'm not going to try anymore.
Well, my thing is that with these incel guys, MGTOW is just a label at the end of the day. What they really need is a change of mindset. That's what they really need. These incels, they haven't had success with women, which is fine. That's completely fine. But to allow a woman to control your life, you see, the problem with these guys, they put women on a pedestal. They literally believe that if they can't have a woman, that life is not worth living. Some of these guys are killing themselves over women. Look at that guy. Some of you guys may know of that guy, Baraka McRae. Nicholas McCrary is his real name. He killed himself over a woman. Over not having a woman. He killed himself. Apparently he burnt himself with a fire or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but he's definitely dead. These guys worship women. They literally worship them. They believe that life is not worth living if you cannot have them. These guys, their lives are meaningless. They have no goals. They have no ambition. They have no work ethic. That's the thing with these guys. They're just losers at the end of the day. What they need to do is actually, develop some goals, develop some realistic goals that they can achieve, and actually start improving their own life situation. Because the reality of it is that once you actually start going towards a purpose, start going towards a goal, that effect of not having a woman becomes minimized. The reason why these guys are so hyper focused on having a woman is because they have absolutely nothing else going on in their life. They have nothing going for them. I don't even believe these guys are really indulging in their hobbies, because guys who really indulge in their hobbies, even guys who are not doing well in life, but they're still indulging in their hobbies. And I don't advocate that, to just go and indulge in your hobbies, because at the end of the day, eventually you are going to get burnt out. But even guys who are doing that, right, they're not undertaking this incel belief system. This incel belief system is for the bottom of the barrel, not in terms of just, overall success in life, but also they have the bottom of the barrel self-esteem. There are a lot of guys out there, they may not have success with women, but they just don't care, because their self-esteem is high enough to really, know that they don't need to value themselves by women. Incels, they value themselves as a man by their success rate with women. They are gynocentric. They're not pro-male. There's nothing pro-male about these guys. How can you be pro-male but you value men by women? So these guys are actually anti-male. And this is what people need to understand, that don't feel sympathetic for these guys. I used to sympathize with incels, but as I got to understanding more and more, and to understand the psychology of these guys, because really what it is, it's a mental state. Like that video with M Crafts, he did that video, I think it was called Incel is a False Mental State. That was a good video. I did a response to that. It's a mental state. These guys are not changing how they think about themselves, how they think about women. So that's the problem here. Whether they go MGTOW or not is not really relevant. Whether it's sour grapes or not, either way, going MGTOW is not going to save these guys, because they will just remain with that same, level of loser mentality that they have. There are a lot of losers in MGTOW. Some MGTOWs are trying to present this narrative that MGTOWs are guys that are going out there and they're successful, and they put themselves first, and they spend their time, and they're hard working, and that is true in some cases, but there are a lot of losers in MGTOW. And those guys are coming from the incel, primarily the incel background and TFL background.
You're giving up. And that's wrong. See? If you have a goal in mind, and I'm not talking just about, women, okay, in everything in life. If you have an objective.
Women should never be a goal. It should never be a goal. If you are on your purpose, if you're fulfilling your goal, and women aren't receptive to you, at the end of the day, those women ain't worth it, because those women are not appreciating what you have to offer. So either way, it's a win-win situation.
Objective in mind, and it's an objective that you can achieve because you yourself have the qualities, or you have seen other men like you, no different from you, who have achieved this objective. Well, if you can achieve this objective, then you should achieve it. And if you are not achieving it, it's because of your failure.
Exactly.
It's not because the grapes are so sour. It's not because the women are these sluts and whores. It's not because this achievement in your job or your profession or your business is, unattainable except for geniuses. No. If you are failing to achieve your goal, it's because you are failing to adapt. I talk about this all the time. I did a whole video called Adapt or Suffer. You can find it right here. See, it's very easy to fall into the sour grapes mode and say that you're not achieving something because the objective in and of itself is rotten or bad. It's very easy, but it's the excuse of the loser. It's the excuse of the man who's failing to adapt, who's failing to look at his situation and realize the way I am going is not helping me reach my objective. Therefore, I have to pick a different path, a different way of doing it so that I can reach my objective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how these guys don't see that. I'm starting to think that these guys are just dumb. You know, they're just really, really dumb. It's like they're not seeing the fact that there are different ways to go about this. But I just think that the victim mentality is too strong with these guys. Some of these guys have the narrative that they're just such big victims that nothing they can do is going to do anything anyway. And I think that comes down to laziness. Is that really down to laziness? These guys are lazy. They're not willing to go and put the effort in to get a woman, you know, or to do anything in life. Because these guys are not successful people in any area for the most part. Some of them are, but overwhelming majority of them, they're not successful anywhere because they're lazy.
My objective might be here, and I'm trying to reach it, and I have obstacles. Well, then I have to go around these obstacles. I have to figure out a way to achieve my goal. I can't be of the mindset that just because I keep repeating the same thing over and over again and fail to achieve my goals, then that means that the goal is not worth achieving. You see what I'm saying? Because, and this is the reason, and I'll tell you the truth of the matter, because I've seen it countless times before. When you give up on an objective, on something that really matters to you, when you fall for sour grapes, when you say that the women are whores, or this objective is shitty, or whatever it is, okay? When you fall for sour grapes, then a bitterness descends on your life. A bitterness that is, because I've seen it. And sometimes in certain aspects, I have to admit that I myself have experienced it. And certain things that I myself wanted and sort of like failed to achieve and then said, ah, fuck it, sour grapes and all the rest of it, you know. I recognize that in that areas of my life, I am bitter. All in all, I'm blessed by the fact that in my life in general, I'm quite happy and quite content and satisfied. And the things I've achieved, I treasure them. And the things I have failed to achieve that were just a little bit beyond my grasp, well, it happens to everybody. Everybody has some goal or objective that is a little bit beyond their grasp, right?
Yep, that's true. And you just have to, you know, accept certain things that, you know, certain things in life you may not be able to have, but that doesn't mean that you cannot enjoy your life. You know, you have to overcome the desire to have certain things, because there will always be things that you can always strive for better. You can always do better than what you're doing right now, but you just have to believe in yourself. But believing is only the first step. If you don't even have that belief, and that's one thing with incels, they don't even believe in themselves. So how the hell do you expect to have any success when you don't even believe you can be successful in the first place?
But insofar as the few objectives, and I'm thankful that they are few, in the few objectives where I sour graped it, when I said, oh, it's not worth it, I so regret it. I so regret it. And I know men, friends of mine, and guys I grew up with, who had some great goal in mind, and they decided, oh, it's not worth it. And they lived without regret for the rest of their life. The regret dominated their lives. And it's a horrible thing, because there are only a few things that I regret in my life, but these guys have major things that they regret, that they sour graped, and the decades ahead of them just became sour as those grapes in the fable of Aesop.
And a lot of these guys, I watch their channels and they're getting worse. As time goes by, they're getting worse. And that is because of the fact that they're not pursuing any goals. They're literally just throwing their life down the toilet. And that's their fault. That is their fault. Nobody, you know, is doing that to them. they're not doing anything to help themselves, and they're descending into madness, into more bitterness, more anger, more self-hate, more depression, and ultimately for many of these guys it will end in suicide, or possibly even worse, going out and harming others. And it's almost entirely their own fault. Yes, there are other factors that come into play, but those other factors, pretty much every guy, every normal average guy is dealing with those other factors too. This idea that incels are some special kind of victims, it's bizarre. These beliefs that they have are completely bizarre. Every guy is going through the same stuff, unless you're born into some privilege, you're born into a very upper class, very wealthy family. But for the most part, most average guys you see on the street, those guys are encountering this exact same problems. But how they deal with those problems is different. And that's why they're able to get through life. And yeah, they have their ups and downs, but they're all able to get through life without, this kind of mindset. Because they simply can adapt better than these incel guys.
Fable. It just wrecked their lives, and you don't want to go there. It is much better to try with all your might to achieve a goal, to try every strategy, every tactic, everything that you can possibly think of, adapt in every way possible, and try to achieve your objective, your goal, and fail. It's much better. That is much better than to turn your back on your objective and say, oh, it's just, it's just sour grapes. Because later on in your life, you're going to be kicking yourself and wondering why you didn't try harder, why you didn't adapt more, change approach.
You don't want to regret things in your life. You really don't. You guys are young. You guys are full of potential. I hate to sound like Jordan Peterson, but, stop throwing your life away, man.
Right? You're going to be thinking of that. It's going to gnaw at you. Okay? And it will make of your life a bitter thing, and you don't want that.
No, you don't.
I'm telling you, man, because I'm about to be 51 years old, more than half a fucking century old. So I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about because I've seen it. It's not that I'm smarter, I've just been around longer and I've seen it. And you never, ever want to be that guy who says, 20 years after the fact, you say to yourself, oh, if only I'd done this, I would have gotten that and my life would have been so much better. You don't want to be that guy. It is much better to be the guy who tried everything, every possibility, and just couldn't reach the goal. It's better to be that guy than the guy who sort of like turned his back on his objective and said, it's not worth it. Believe me. I'm repeating myself in this video, but I guess I'm repeating myself in this video because I just feel so strongly about this, because, like I said, I've seen it, and it is just so sad.
It is sad because these guys, they don't realize that actually you do have quite a large degree of control over your own life. Yes, there are factors outside of your control, but everything that you have control over, you should be using that. Every aspect of your life you have control over, you should be using that to try and achieve your objectives. These guys are not doing that, and that's why it's their fault. Okay? It is their fault. These other guys on YouTube are saying, oh, it's not your fault, it's not your fault. These guys are also losers. These are not successful people, and they have the loser mentality. And their goal is to make you guys losers. I don't want to see other people as losers, because I realize that these guys, they can do a lot better. But they have to realize that they have control over their own lives, and they need to actually put the work and the time and the effort in, and they will start to see results. So if you like the video, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and you guys will hear from me shortly.